Welcome to Cancer and Peace Moments. This is Peter. These moments are 15-minute clips of the larger episodes. Blessings.
When you received a terminal diagnosis, you took time to do videos for all your kids. You want to have a message that you would communicate with all your kids. And so I'm going to go to you here and say, hey, your thoughts as you were going into this process. You've thought about legacy. You've thought about, what do you want to leave for your family and the people around you? What were you feeling? What's the whys? And just a little bit of the importance of this from your viewpoint.
Yeah, and I think, thanks, Sean. I think we have established in prior episodes that that purpose provides meaning. And so how can I find purpose within the cancer journey? And we've talked about a number. In fact, we have a podcast called that, Purpose. But I think when you're been given a diagnosis or even a terminal diagnosis, how can I embrace purpose or meaning within that? And I think the whole concept of giving a legacy is really a major part of that, providing meaning for that journey. I had two times where Memorial Sloan Kettering had told my doctor, send him home and call hospice through my journey. The first time was in 2015 after that my 14th surgery, 10-hour surgery with 3 surgeons. I've talked a lot about it. It's really my sea change, my game changer. That's where the cancer became metastatic. And so when Sloan said to my doctor from Lenox Hill, Manhattan, to send Peter home and call hospice care, I still resumed sort of my normal life. I was still working, and there was no evidence of disease that we could see. He had cut away tumors in that surgery, but there was no such thing as clean margins because he was cutting them from all over the place. So we knew cells were still present, but it wasn't enough where we could say, okay, cancer's present. And so, go on disability and do all that. We weren't ready for that, but everyone, the writing was on the wall that the cancer was still in there and it was going to come out again. So I went back to work and I resumed my normal work phase and didn't think much about end of life and mortality and all that. I mean, I was too busy trying to make a living, and I didn't feel well. I was very fatigued and I was grumpier than usual. I know that. My tolerance level wasn't all that great. It was difficult to work full time as a lawyer and do that journey because I knew the cancer was growing. But finally in 2017, down at another New York hospital with my surgeon, and I was overnight for about 4 nights, but it was then that he went into my bladder and that whole area and found, tumors, and tumors the size of a tennis ball was in there. And so the PET scan revealed that there were tumors outside in the region and all that. So finally in 2017, we could say, okay, we have a visible sign of all this cancer, and it is metastatic and it is life-threatening. And so at that point, I explained that scene before, but in March, my oncologist and surgeon together, teary-eyed, my surgeon had a fellow who I knew well, and he was crying, like weeping, crying. And they just put their hands on me and they said, we're done. There's nothing left to do. My kidneys were so damaged that I couldn't get chemotherapy, no major cancers. I tried 3 major cancer centers and no one would do it because it would have destroyed my kidney function. So I was disqualified from it. And at that point, that's when my doctor said, okay, this is it. We've done everything we could. At that point, I knew, okay, this is it. This is the end of life process that I'll be going into. So it was then that I went on disability. I left my law practice. I remember having a meeting with the firm I called the firm in to the meeting, and I just said into our conference room, and I did residential real estate closings, lots of them. So there were times I had to talk about septic systems and roofs and things like that. And
Sounds exciting.
I just told everyone, I said, in the final days of my life, talking about roofs and septic systems is not a meaningful legacy for my family and for me. I remember having the conversation with the Lord and just examining myself, like, what gives me life? That was the question. What gives me life? And I said, hey, if I have 6 months left, which was the probability that was pretty good, that's what was going to be the time frame. How do I want to spend it? And it was really interesting because I could care less about running out and getting a new sports car, going on a vacation somewhere that's exotic, whatever. Like, in other words, fulfilling my bucket list. When I first started the cancer journey in 2005, I did create a bucket list.
You had a bucket list, and then
in 2005.
So the terminal diagnosis that was imminent changed your bucket list in a very big way.
Right.
Huh.
And then it became, hey, the realization as a believer was, I'm going to be in heaven pretty soon. I can see it now.
Mm-hmm.
The horizon's there. And so preparing for my visit to heaven, I liked watching near-death experience videos, and I know they're controversial, but some of them are just amazing.
So you started binge watching near-death videos on YouTube or something?
Yeah. And I read,
Jack and I are both shaking our heads here in studio laughing.
I read Imagine Heaven, which has a lot of near-death experience accounts and talks about heaven scripturally and all that stuff. My legacy is really my reputation as a man, my children, and what I want them to know.
That's interesting. I want to talk about that compression for a second, because compression by itself to me means you felt the pressure of it too.
Yeah.
In other words, the pressure of, have I completed this thing that's most important, my time on earth?
Right.
That becomes a relevant question, and there's a pressure to that. Did it feel like pressure or not?
Yeah, it did. I mean, and a pastor told me to write a letter to each child.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, when you write the letter, do it from your heart. Like, just don't recount things that happened, but really think about your heart. Like, how does this child impact your heart? The fact that they exist, who they are, how does that impact your heart? It took me a week to write each letter.
Wow.
Because I was so sad writing the letter that I have 6 children.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I was saying goodbye. And I wanted the words to be just right. And I wanted it to be, how did I feel when they were born? Like, what feeling did I have? What was I feeling and thinking about them as I held this baby and as they grew up? If they opened this letter, right after I passed, what would I want them to know about how I felt about them?
Yeah, I want to stop you for a second. This is seems like a really important an important point in your journey, and you're taking the time to really think about what it is that you wanted to communicate, things that maybe hadn't been communicated. And then a question comes up in my mind too that I think it might be really important for our listeners to hear, or for how you managed this, is, did the letter feel inadequate to describe what you wanted to? In other words, you write this this letter, or you leave this communication, but did it feel inadequate still?
Oh yeah.
That's the reason why I was going to guess you were going to say yes. I didn't want to pre-script that, but I was going to guess you were going to say yes. And one of the things I was thinking as you were saying that is, when you communicated something that was so deep and meaningful and real, and you had to do it with words on a page or in some way like that, it was never going to be perfect.
Right.
And the goal of this isn't to be perfect, it's to step into the vulnerability of sharing your heart. And I think that's an important part of what I think you went through is that you took a week. You could have easily spent a month or more, just because of how hard it is to wrestle
Right.
with each one of those out.
And the other side of this coin is that what a gift I was given
Mhm.
because, I had a couple friends over COVID who were in their 50s, fathers. One died from a brain aneurysm during the night, and another one had a heart attack during the night. I was given a period of time to actually formulate what I wanted to say to each child
Yeah.
and actually spend time with them. That's a gift. Thank you for listening. Have a great day. Blessings.